Well, our embassy is working closely on the ground, keeping in touch with what's going on, and our consular support is keeping in touch with dual nationals in Libya, providing the support that they need as well, and we'll continue to do that. And of course, our condolences not only go to the people of Libya, but the wider diaspora as well, and we'll continue to do everything we can. As urged on both sides of the House, the message is well received today.
Theo Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, firstly, I fully support that the UK government has provided international assistance to the people of Libya. But can I ask what specifically we're doing to make sure that humanitarian assistance is getting now urgently to help people on the ground today?
As I said, we've made our initial offer of support. We're continuing to have an active dialogue with Libyan authorities and with the UN as well. And as I said to the opposition spokesperson, key thing today is we're waiting for the UN needs assessment so we can then give our best assessment of what sort of support we need to help provide.
Marina Wilson.
Much, Mr. Speaker. The tragic scenes we're witnessing from Libya are utterly horrifying, and my thoughts and prayers are with all those affected. Mr. Speaker, during the earthquakes in Syria and Turkey, my noble friend in the other place, Lord Purvis, asked at the time why the government's humanitarian crisis reserve, which recently stood at £500 million, has now been depleted to only £30 million. And he asked if this might result in the UK's response to other disasters and emergencies being greatly reduced. So could I ask the Minister whether this significant reduction in a crisis reserve for humanitarian assistance has affected our ability to help those in Libya?
Minister.
I think members will agree we responded fast to the situation in Morocco. And it's very sad that this tragedy follows so quickly afterwards, and we want to respond quickly too. Part of the challenge has been understanding the situation on the ground. We know the macro picture, but the exact detail which honourable members want to see, we want to see, is difficult to ascertain because of communication links and problems with transportation. But we'll get a better assessment this afternoon.
Alexander Stafford.
Very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. Obviously what's happened in Libya is absolute catastrophe, and it's very awful for all those people who've been affected and killed that. But as well as lives lost, infrastructure has been damaged, but also heritage and culture has been damaged. Libya, that part of Libya, is home to a wealth of heritage and history, including the UNESCO site of Cyrene. I gather satellite images show that roads to Cyrene have been badly damaged and washed away. What assessment has this government made, or conversations has the government had with UNESCO about these World Heritage Sites, and what's the government doing to protect and restore World Heritage Sites that are damaged?
I know my honourable friend's real interest in the history and heritage in North Africa, and clearly any damage to any UNESCO World Heritage Site would be great concern. But right now, as members have reiterated on both sides of the House, our focus has to be on what we can do to help preserve life and also protect British nationals. But we'll absolutely work with partners through UNESCO on the issues he's raised.
Andrew Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a devastating tragedy that has unquestionably been exacerbated by Libya's poor warning and evacuation systems and their substandard planning and design standards. I welcome the financial support that the Minister has outlined, but could he assure me that we will also look to provide whatever technical expertise is necessary to bring about improvements in these areas, both for the rebuilding of Libya now, but also into the future?
I think the honourable member makes a really important point about the medium term, and we will certainly examine what technical support we can provide. That will be important looking at the infrastructure issues. But I would also gently urge all parties in Libya to recognise that this is about prioritisation. And if they can move away from conflict to thinking about how they can work in the interests of their own populations, that will help the situation as well. So we stand ready to help. But also, once we get through this immediate humanitarian crisis, other parties will need to work out how they can help move the country forward.
Carrie McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate what the Minister's saying. The humanitarian response to what has been described as apocalyptic scenes has to be the priority. But I think that my first term as an MP, I went to Kashmir after the devastating earthquake there, and we looked at how the way the school buildings were built actually lent themselves to roofs collapsing on children, you know, horrific scenes. And we talked about how the UK could lend its expertise in the area to making sure the reconstruction effort meant that Kashmir was far more resilient to future shocks. Are we still doing programmes like that? Can we use that expertise to make sure that when it comes to rebuilding Libya, but not just Libya, but other countries too, we can make sure that the country is far more resilient?
I recognise the Honourable Member's interest and expertise in this area, and from her previous visits and through her work in Parliament, and I think she makes an important point, and it's similar to the one made by her colleague just previously. We do need to look at what technical expertise we can provide, and I'll take that away and work with Lord Ahmed on that particular issue. It's a good point.
Andrew Gwynn.
Thank you. The scenes coming out of Libya are just horrific, and my thoughts and prayers are added to those across the House, to those families that are affected. The Minister, in giving his response to my honourable friend on the front bench, said that communications had been taken out and that is hampering the efforts to get humanitarian aid to where it's needed. So what can the UK government do to help get those communications back up and running?
Minister.
Really important point, and hopefully our expertise can help there, but we need to see what the UN want us to do in a coordinated way. We'll play our part, and I think the calls from members in this House will spur us on and help us in our negotiations to get urgent access to do what we can to help. And Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank all members for their contributions today. It's really been an important conversation and debate and call to action.
Jim Shand.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for his deep and sincere interest and commitment which all of us in this House wish to see. Our government and our Minister has never been found wanting when it comes to helping, and we appreciate that. Ministers outlined the devastation of Storm Daniel in terms of loss of life, and my thoughts and prayers are, like others, with those families who have lost loved ones. There are charities like Christian Aid are already setting up appeals, and alongside church groups in my constituency of Strangford, but also across Northern Ireland. It is clear that the desire is to help, and how can the Minister and Government work alongside the charities and the churches who want to help, who wish to help, to get the aid to the right place as soon as humanly possible? Thank you.
Response from UK charities, including the ones he mentioned, are always greatly valued, and their expertise and their capability to deliver is much valued as well. We now need to get this needs assessment or impact assessment through from the UN today. Let's then coordinate our efforts with partners, not just across governments, but also with NGOs as well. We'll get the best possible outcome. But the call to action is very clear, and we need to move fast now.
That completes the urgent question. We now come to the next urgent question. Wendy Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities to make a statement on the voter identification scheme.
Hear, hear. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We were pleased and encouraged by the first rollout of voter identification at the local elections in England in May. The data gathered in polling stations show that the vast majority of electors, 99.75%, were able to cast their votes successfully and adapted well to the rollout of the changes. We are very grateful for the work of local authorities and other partners in delivering the change in requirements. The Government, as we committed in legislation to do, is conducting an evaluation of the implementation of voter identification at the local elections in May and at the next two UK parliamentary general elections. Our intention is that the first of these reports, evaluating the implementation at May's local elections, will be published in November 2023. Yesterday, the Government published two documents which demonstrate that we are making clear progress with this evaluation and which provide more detail on the evidence upon which the evaluation will be based. We are determined to ensure we fully understand how the policy has operated in practice, what has gone well, and where there are any ideas for improvement in the future. There are few tasks more important in public life, Mr. Speaker, than maintaining the integrity of our democratic process.